21st Cafe, we're joined on the line by Mantsha Pheeha with our money matters this evening. Tisha.
Good evening, guys, and good evening to our listeners.
Thank you so much, Tisha, for coming through once again. What do you have for us this evening?
So, we're trying to introduce concepts so that people can have tools to deal with their money. So today I want us to talk about a concept called total cost of ownership. Total cost of ownership. So, it's a very simple it's a very simple concept, really. What it says is, what is the real cost of owning something? And depending on how we do on time, we'll do an example on renting a house versus buying a house. Then we'll also do an example on buying a car and using public transport. So as an individual, most of us, I don't know how you guys do it, but especially when I started working, I was making decisions on the repayment amount. So I would ask, if I want to buy a car, I'll ask, what is the installment? Like, I don't care how much the car cost. I don't care how much it's going to cost me to run the car. The only thing I want to know is how much is the installment. So when they tell me that the installment is 300, okay, no, I'm ambitious, that's not possible. When they tell me that the installment is 5,000 for a car, I then say, oh no, I can afford it. And then I take the car. But there are other costs that are involved in owning a car that if you and I don't consider, we will never make progress financially. So let's start with a car. So every time when you take money and you pay an installment for a car, you are deciding to spend that money on a car that you could spend on something else. So when you're thinking about how much an installment costs, don't just think about how much you are paying. Also ask yourself, if I was not paying this installment, what was I going to do with this money? So that's very, very important, because there's something that you and I don't consider, which is lost opportunity. Because that 5,000, if you had saved it, it could have been this amount of money. But because you still need to travel, you can't say, I'm not going to buy a car, I'm going to save the 5,000. If you choose not to buy a car, chances are you're going to pay a certain money towards public transport or a lift club or etc. etc. So when you are calculating lost opportunity, don't make a mistake of calculating it on the 5,000, because somewhere, somehow, your transport costs as a human being will always be there. So let's look at funding a car now. So you see a car, and when you see a car, on the shop floor, they tell you that the car is 100,000. When they tell you, and don't worry about the correctness of the figures, when they tell you that the car is 100,000, they tell you that the installment for this car is 5,000. So your car is 100,000 to buy it, and then they tell you that no, it's on sale, it's 100,000, but your installment is 5,000. Because you don't have 100,000 cash, there are two costs to consider. It's the cost of the car and the cost of finance. So when you don't have money, the bank will give you money to buy the car so that you can get the car immediately. But the bank will charge you. The bank will make you pay to give you the money that they are giving you. So that 100,000 that the bank is giving you, they are giving you 100,000, but they are charging you what we call interest for using the money. So now all of a sudden, the cost of your car is not the 100,000 that you are seeing on a sticker on the car, but it's the 100,000 plus the money that you are going to pay the bank for giving you the money now. The option that you have is to save the money for a specific period of time, and then when you have the entire amount of money, you go to the bank, you go to the car dealership, and you buy the car cash. But because most of us, our need for a car is now, there will always be that cost of finance that is involved. So the first two costs that you have is the cost for the car. The second cost is the cost of finance. Then there are additional costs that you need to consider. So when we are sitting with a 5,000 rand installment, that is just for the car. That includes paying for the car. That also includes paying the bank for the price that they've given you for the money, the interest that they've given you for the money. So 5,000 rands will cover these two costs. There are additional costs. If you live in South Africa, every financed car that you have must have insurance. So there is a cost for insurance that you need to consider. If you live in Johannesburg, there are things called e-tolls that most of you do not pay. I don't want to get into the discussion of whether people must pay e-tolls or not, but it doesn't matter. You need to consider that. There is wear and tear on your car. For most people who buy their cars brand new or who buy their cars while they are still under some kind of motor plan and warranty, the dealership will absorb some of that wear and tear. But trust me, that money is included in your 5,000 rands. But if you don't have warranty and you don't have a motor plan, chances are you need to make an allowance for the wear and tear. To run your car, there are certain costs that are involved. One of the main ones being your tires. My father used to make a joke. He bought a very big car one year. And after he bought the car, he said the dealership told him that some people buy the car. Then when they are supposed to replace all the tires, they bring back the car. And because the tires are so expensive, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were going for like 7,000 rands a tire. So when you were supposed to replace all the tires at 28,000, you just felt like, yo, I don't want this car anymore. I'm taking it back. So sometimes the tires is not even wear and tear. That's why other people will even get tire insurance, because you just get into a pothole. There's been rains now. The next thing you know, you have to replace 2 or 3 of your tires, and it's not just your tires, it's also the rims. Then the other thing that most of us, we never think about is the cost of fuel. So it's very important that depending on where you are with your monthly budget, you try to understand the fuel consumption of your car, because not all cars consume fuel the same way. So in order for you now to do a correct cost of ownership, make sure that you consider all these things. So when you have considered all these things, which are direct costs that are associated with the purchase that you have made of a car, on top of these costs, there are indirect costs that you have to consider. Let us say that you used to stay in a back room in the township where you never worried about where your car was parked, or maybe you were staying in the inner city where there is no garage. All of a sudden, this car is forcing you to move to a townhouse when you were not ready to move to a townhouse, because now that you have a car, you need a parking for your car. You need to make sure that your car is safe. So all of a sudden, you didn't just buy a car, but the car is forcing you to move to a safer suburb. The car is forcing you to move to a townhouse with a carport, or to move to a townhouse with a garage. So another person may say, sure, Mantsha, how can you buy a car and immediately move into a townhouse? You have so much money. They don't know. You are forced to move to the townhouse because you need a place for your car to stay. And also is because when you called an insurance and you told them that you are living in the inner city and your car is parked on the road outside, they gave you a premium of 6,000, and they told you that if you were to move to a safer suburb, your premium will be 2.3. So now buying the car is not only forcing you to pay for all these costs associated with the car, but it's also forcing you to make different lifestyle decisions. When you used to buy a quarter every Saturday, a weekend collocation, but all of a sudden you feel like, ish, with my this car, ish, I've heard that they're saying that these cars are not safe at the townships. Now you are no longer having quarter lunches, and you are no longer having shisanyama lunches. You are having a lunch or brunch at a very fancy restaurant. So now all of a sudden your life is fancy because of this car that you bought. It's changing everything around how you are spending your money, where you are spending your money, the friends that you have, the people that you hang out with. So when we are thinking of total cost of ownership, we are not just talking of direct costs. We are also talking about indirect costs that are associated with owning a new asset. You see, guys, 10:04. That's my story, and I end it here.
Sure. I know. Teacher, thank you so much. Like I was saying to for now, I'm like, even some of these things that we are praying that God should bless us with and so on and so on. We calculated what it will really, really cost us to own those things, even if He gives them to us.
Yes, that is so true. And sometimes it's God knows. That's why sometimes it looks like things are delayed. He knows you are not ready. So some of the things He's not denying us. He will give us those things. We just need to wait and get to the point where we are able to afford everything associated with the blessing
Direct
that we are.
and indirect.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you so much, teacher. Thank you so much. And if you want to connect with you, how can they do that?
So I'm available on social media platforms, on all social media.